I was standing in the middle of what was supposed to be my niece's picture-perfect wedding day, but instead it was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. Now, before we get into all that drama, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love knowing how far our stories reach. My name's Auntie Maya, a 72-year-old with more life experience than I sometimes know what to do with. Born and bred in Atlanta, I've seen just about everything there is to see and then some. After retiring from a long career in nursing, I thought I'd seen all the chaos and heartache a person could. That was until my niece Jasmine asked me to help organize her wedding. Jasmine was marrying her college sweetheart, Michael, a fine young man from a good family, or so we thought. The two had been inseparable since their sophomore year, and their wedding was set to be the event of the year in our small community. The trouble began a week before the wedding, but let me back up a bit and give you the full picture. Jasmine's parents had passed away when she was just a teenager, and since then I'd stepped in as much as I could. So, when she asked me to help with the wedding, there was no way I was going to say no. We planned for months, picking out the perfect venue, a quaint little church with a big backyard for the reception. Jasmine was very particular about what she wanted: a small, intimate ceremony with just close family and friends, simple but elegant decorations, and a live jazz band to dance to under the stars. Everything was going smoothly until Jasmine's future mother-in-law, Mrs. Henderson, decided she had her own ideas for the wedding. Mrs. Henderson, a stout woman with a voice that could command an army, wanted a grand affair. The bigger the better. She started making changes without telling anyone, booking a larger venue and inviting more guests. When Jasmine found out, she was livid. She confronted Mrs. Henderson, and that's when the bomb dropped. Mrs. Henderson revealed that Michael's father wasn't just any retired Army general, but a man with significant debts that they were hoping the wedding would help cover. They planned to invite wealthy acquaintances under the guise of a grand wedding, hoping to secure loans or investments. Jasmine was heartbroken, not because of the money, but because Michael hadn't been honest with her. The confrontation led to an all-out war between the two families, with Michael caught in the middle, trying to mediate. I sat Michael down, trying to understand why he hadn't been upfront. He explained that he was embarrassed and worried Jasmine would leave him if she knew about his family's financial troubles. I told him, "Son, marriage is built on trust. You start with lies, and it'll crumble faster than a cookie in a toddler's hand." Things were just starting to simmer down when another secret came to light. Jasmine, in her distress, confessed to me that she was pregnant. She hadn't told Michael yet, fearing it would only add to the pressure he was under. Now, back to where we started, the wedding day. It felt like we were on the brink of a disaster. The larger venue looked cold and impersonal. Half the original guest list had been cut to accommodate Mrs. Henderson's important guests, and there was a palpable tension in the air. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. As I stood there, reflecting on the chaos, I realized that if anything could pull this family together, it was the baby. It was time for some of Auntie Maya's no-nonsense, straight-talking wisdom. I gathered the families together, including Mrs. Henderson and Michael, who looked like he was about to face a firing squad. I took a deep breath and began, "We are here today because two people fell in love. Not because of money, not for show, but for love. And soon there'll be a new little life joining this family. Yes, Jasmine is pregnant." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Mrs. Henderson's face softened for the first time in weeks, and Michael, tears in his eyes, wrapped Jasmine in his arms. It was the turning point we needed. We all worked together to rearrange the venue, making it feel intimate and personal again. The original guest list was reinstated, and even Mrs. Henderson chipped in, apologizing for her behavior and admitting her fears about the family's financial situation. The wedding went ahead, not as planned, but perhaps as it was meant to be. Underneath a canopy of fairy lights, Jasmine and Michael exchanged vows, promising to face whatever life threw at them together. As they danced to the soft tunes of the jazz band, I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Sometimes it takes a bit of chaos to bring out the best in us, to remind us of what truly matters. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect. As the autumn leaves began to fall in my small hometown of Savannah, Georgia, I found myself standing at the threshold of a journey that would unearth secrets buried for decades. My mother, Eleanor, had just passed away, leaving behind a collection of faded letters, photographs, and a mystery that clung to them like the scent of old paper. I spent hours sorting through her belongings, each item whispering fragments of a past I thought I knew. Among these relics, a particular letter caught my eye, its edges frayed, the ink faded, but the urgency in the handwriting unmistakable. It was addressed to my mother from someone named James Arlington, a name that felt as unfamiliar as it did important. The letter hinted at a deep connection, a shared secret that had been kept from me. My curiosity piqued, and I knew I had to find out more. But before we dive deeper into this story, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. I always find joy in seeing how far my stories reach. James Arlington was not a name my mother had ever mentioned, and yet as I dug through more of her things, his presence became undeniable. Photographs of him and my mother, young and seemingly in love, in places I had never seen them before. The realization hit me like a cold wave. My mother had lived a life before me, one that she chose to keep hidden. Driven by a need to understand, I set out to find James Arlington. My search led me to a small coastal town just a few hours away from Savannah. The town was quaint, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's business, yet no one had heard of a James Arlington. Just as I was about to give up, an elderly woman named Mrs. Thomas approached me. She had overheard my inquiries, and with a glint of recognition in her eyes, she whispered, "The Arlingtons moved away decades ago, but their son Michael still lives in the old family house by the lighthouse." My heart raced as I drove down the winding roads that led to the lighthouse. The house, weathered by salt and time, stood as a sentinel overlooking the sea. I hesitated at the door, my hand trembling as I knocked. The door creaked open, and there stood an elderly man, his eyes mirroring the same deep blue as the ocean behind him. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice gentle yet guarded. "I'm looking for James Arlington," I began. "I believe he was your father." A myriad of emotions crossed Michael's face before he stepped aside, gesturing for me to enter. "I suppose you better come in. It's a long story." As the door closed behind me, a chapter of my mother's life was about to unfold, a chapter filled with love, loss, and a secret that tied our families together in ways I could never have imagined. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. The afternoon sun began to dip below the horizon as Michael pored over old family albums, each photo, each memento unraveling the story of Eleanor and James. It turned out my mother and James had been childhood sweethearts, their love the kind that promised forever. Yet, as war broke out and James was drafted, their paths diverged, leaving their hearts entangled, but their lives painfully separate. Michael paused, his hands trembling as he handed me a photograph. It was a picture of a young girl, no older than 3, her smile radiant and familiar. "This is Emily, your half-sister," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The room spun as I tried to process his words. A sister. All this time, I had a sister I never knew about. Tears blurred my vision as Michael continued to tell me about Emily, about how she grew up asking about the mother she never met, about how James always kept Eleanor's memory alive in their hearts. As the night fell and the lighthouse cast its beam across the darkening waves, I knew that my journey had just begun. Finding Emily, understanding the choices our parents made, and bridging the gap that time and secrets had created between us would not be easy. Yet as I left Michael's house that evening, a sense of purpose filled my heart. Those who experience such moments never forget them. And as I embark on this journey to connect with Emily, to weave together the frayed edges of our family's tapestry, I invite you to stay tuned for the next chapter of this story. As I walked away from Michael's house, the chill of the evening air wrapped around me like a cloak. My thoughts were a whirlwind. Finding Emily was going to be a journey filled with unknowns, but I felt an unshakable resolve to piece together the story of our parents and mend the broken links in our family chain. The first step, I decided, was to dig through the past, to gather every shred of information our parents had left behind. The old family home, now standing silent and somewhat forlorn in Atlanta, Georgia, would be my starting point. It was a place brimming with memories, both joyous and painful, a repository of decades of laughter, tears, and secrets. I arrived early the next morning, the sky a tapestry of pink and orange hues as the sun began its ascent. The key, still on its familiar chain, felt heavy in my hand as I unlocked the front door. The house greeted me with the musty smell of disuse, a tangible reminder of the passage of time. As I stepped inside, the silence was almost reverent, as if the house itself was waiting to divulge its secrets. Moving through the rooms, I was struck by the layers of memories each space held. The living room, with its faded photographs and the grand piano that had never quite been in tune, the kitchen where our mother had concocted countless meals, her laughter echoing off the walls, and the study, a veritable labyrinth of books and papers, where our father had spent endless hours poring over his work. It was in the study that I found it. Tucked away in the back of a drawer, hidden beneath a pile of old tax returns and forgotten letters, was a small leather-bound journal. The cover was worn, the edges frayed, bearing the unmistakable signs of frequent use. My heart raced as I opened it, the pages crackling with age. The journal was our mother's, a diary of sorts, filled with her thoughts, dreams, and fears. As I flipped through the pages, her words seemed to leap off the page, a vivid testament to the love she had for us and the pain she carried. There were entries about Emily and me, reflections on her marriage to our father, and most intriguingly, cryptic references to a decision that had weighed heavily on her heart. One entry in particular caught my eye. Dated just a few weeks before her passing, it read, "The truth about Emily must come to light, for the sake of both my daughters. I can only hope they will understand and forgive me." My mind raced as I absorbed her words. What truth was she referring to, and how could it possibly alter the course of our relationship? Determined to find answers, I knew my next step was to locate Emily. The task would not be simple. Years of silence and distance had erased her from my life. Yet, with our mother's journal as my guide, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The search led me to countless dead ends, a testament to the ease with which one can disappear if they truly wish to be lost. It was only when I sought the help of a private investigator that the pieces began to fall into place. Through a combination of public records, social media deep dives, and old-fashioned detective work, we found a lead. Emily had changed her last name and was living in a small coastal town in North Carolina. The realization hit me like a wave. Emily was out there, living a life completely detached from our shared past. The thought of confronting her, of unraveling the years of silence and secrets, was daunting. Yet the words of our mother from her journal echoed in my mind, urging me on. As I prepared for the journey to North Carolina, I couldn't help but wonder about the reunion. Would Emily welcome me with open arms, or had the passage of time and the weight of our mother's secrets built an insurmountable wall between us? Only time would tell. The drive was long, the miles stretching out before me as I traversed state lines. With each passing mile, my anticipation grew, mingled with a sense of apprehension. What would I say? How do you bridge a gap that spans years and is littered with unanswered questions? Finally, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, I reached the small town where Emily had made her life. My heart was a tempest of emotions as I parked the car and stepped out, the salty sea air filling my lungs. The address led me to a modest, beautifully kept home, surrounded by a garden in full bloom. I hesitated at the gate, taking a moment to calm the storm within me. This was it, the moment of truth. Taking a deep breath, I walked up the path and rang the doorbell. The seconds stretched into eternity as I waited, my heart pounding in my chest. And then, the door opened. Standing before me was Emily, her features older, yet unmistakably familiar. For a moment, we simply stared at each other, the years melting away as a myriad of emotions flickered in her eyes. "Hello, Emily," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's me, your sister." The look of shock on her face was palpable, and for a moment I feared I had made a mistake. But then something remarkable happened. A smile, tentative at first, then growing wider, spread across her face. "I've been waiting for you," she said, her voice brimming with emotion. And just like that, the barriers began to crumble. "Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story." On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story, with love and respect. Leaving Michael's house that evening, the crisp autumn air kissed my cheeks, a subtle reminder of the changing seasons. Much like the leaves that were beginning to turn, I felt a transformation within myself. The drive back home was quiet, reflective. My thoughts were a whirlwind, circling around Emily, the sister I barely knew, and the secrets that had kept us apart all these years. As I pulled into the driveway, the house seemed to welcome me with open arms, the porch light casting a warm glow that cut through the dimming light. But the comfort of home couldn't ease the restlessness in my soul. I knew I needed to find Emily, to speak with her, to understand why our parents had made the decisions they did, and most importantly, to reconnect. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, a steaming cup of coffee in my hands, staring at the laptop screen. It was time to start searching for Emily, but where to begin? Social media seemed like the obvious choice, but our common last name made the search feel like finding a needle in a haystack. Hours passed with no luck, and I could feel the frustration mounting. But then, I remembered the old family photo album tucked away in the attic. Perhaps there was a clue waiting to be discovered among its dusty pages. Climbing the attic stairs felt like stepping back in time. The air was thick with memories, each step creaking under the weight of years gone by. There, in the corner, was the photo album, just as I remembered it. I flipped through the pages, a montage of birthdays, holidays, and ordinary days that seemed extraordinary now, looking for anything that could point me in Emily's direction. Then, I found it. A photograph of Emily and me as children, taken at a family reunion. On the back, in my mother's neat handwriting, was the name of the park where the photo was taken. It was a long shot, but maybe, just maybe, someone at the park would remember us, or, better yet, have a connection to Emily. Fueled by a newfound hope, I grabbed my keys and headed to the park. It was a beautiful, sprawling space with ancient oaks and winding paths. I wandered for hours, asking anyone who would listen if they remembered the family reunion from the photo, showing the picture to countless strangers. Just as I was about to give up, an elderly man sitting on a bench called me over. "I remember that day," he said, his voice crackling with age. "The Johnson family reunion, right? A big event it was. Haven't seen one like it since." My heart skipped a beat. "Yes, that's right. Do you remember a girl named Emily? She's my sister, and I'm trying to find her." The man squinted, thinking, "Can't say that I do, but Marie might. She's been running the community center here for decades. Knows everyone and everything that's happened in this park." Thanking him, I rushed to the community center, a modest building near the park's entrance. Marie, a kindly woman with a sharp memory, listened intently as I explained my quest. "Emily, you say? Johnson?" She tapped her chin, then her eyes lit up. "Yes, I think I remember her. Used to come here often, even after your family stopped. She was very involved with the children's programs." My heart raced. "Do you know where I can find her?" Marie shook her head. "I'm sorry, dear. It's been years since I've seen her." But she paused, rummaging through a drawer. "She used to volunteer with this charity. They might know." She handed me a business card, and as I left the community center, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the park. I felt closer to Emily than I had in years, a tangible link finally within my grasp. As I sat in my car, dialing the charity's number, I realized the journey to find Emily was more than just a search for my sister. It was a journey to reconnect with my own past, to understand my family's history, and to bridge the gaps that time and secrets had created. The phone rang, and my heart pounded in my chest. "Hello," a voice answered on the other end. I took a deep breath, ready to take the next step on this unexpected journey. "Hi, my name is..." I'm looking for Emily Johnson. She used to volunteer with you." The line went silent for a moment, and then, "Yes, Emily, we remember her well. How can we help you?" I smiled, a mix of relief and anticipation washing over me. "I'm her sister. I've been trying to find her. Can you tell me where she is?" The voice hesitated. "I'm afraid it's not that simple, but maybe we can help you reconnect. Let's talk." As the conversation unfolded, I felt a sense of purpose and hope. I was one step closer to finding Emily, to healing our family's wounds. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was no longer walking it alone. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Leaving Michael's house that evening, the night air was crisp and filled with the scent of autumn leaves. I wrapped my coat tighter around me, my mind racing with all we had discussed. Michael, with his kind eyes and gentle demeanor, had opened a door to the past that I thought was forever closed. He had given me a box of letters, photographs, and mementos, a tangible connection to the sister I barely knew, Emily. As I drove through the quiet streets of our hometown, the streetlights cast long shadows, and my thoughts drifted to Emily. The Emily I remembered was a vibrant soul with a laugh that could light up a room. But the Emily in Michael's stories seemed like a stranger, her life a tapestry of joy, pain, and untold stories. The box sat beside me on the passenger seat, its contents a mystery waiting to be unraveled. I couldn't wait any longer. Pulling over into an empty parking lot, I turned on the dome light and opened the box. The first thing I saw was a photograph of Emily and me as children, our arms wrapped around each other, smiles wide and carefree. A pang of longing hit me. How did we go from those smiling children to strangers? Beneath the photograph was a stack of letters bound with a ribbon. I carefully untied it, and the first letter I picked up was in Emily's handwriting. "Dear Maya," it began. "I know it's been a long time since we last spoke, and I'm sorry for that. There's so much I want to tell you, so much you need to know." Tears blurred my vision as I read on, Emily's words revealing a life filled with both love and regret. For hours, I sat in my car, reading each letter, each word pulling me deeper into Emily's world. She spoke of her travels, her loves, her losses, and her longing for a connection with me, the sister she left behind. With each letter, I felt the gap between us narrowing, her voice becoming clearer, as if she was right there beside me. Dawn was breaking when I finally looked up from the letters. A new day was upon me, and with it a newfound determination to find Emily. But where to start? The letters offered clues, but no clear path. It was then that I remembered a name that Michael had mentioned. Clara. A close friend of Emily's, someone who might know where she was. After a few hours of sleep, I was on the phone, tracking down Clara. It wasn't easy, but eventually I found a number that worked. "Clara?" I asked hesitantly when a woman answered the phone. "Yes, who's this?" Clara's voice was cautious but warm. "It's Maya, Emily's sister. I was wondering if we could talk about Emily. I'm trying to find her." There was a pause, and then Clara's voice softened. "Oh, Maya, it's been so long. Yes, of course, we can talk. Would you like to meet for coffee?" 2 days later, I found myself sitting across from Clara in a cozy cafe downtown. She was a striking woman, with a kind face and eyes that held a depth of understanding. As we talked, Clara filled in the gaps of Emily's life that the letters had left. She spoke of Emily's passions, her struggles, and her undying love for her family. "But where is she now?" I asked, the question that had been burning in my heart. Clara sighed, her expression turning somber. "Emily moved abroad a few years ago. She wanted a fresh start, to build a new life. But she always talked about coming back, about reconnecting with you." A fresh start. The words echoed in my mind. Emily had always been the adventurous one, seeking new horizons, but I never imagined she would move so far away. And yet, despite the distance, her letters made it clear she never stopped thinking about me, about us. Clara scribbled an address on a napkin and slid it across the table. "This is where she was living last I heard. It's not much, but it's a start." Holding the napkin, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. Finding Emily was no longer a distant dream. It was a possibility, a journey I was about to embark on. "Thank you, Clara," I said, my voice filled with gratitude. "You've given me hope." As I left the cafe, the sun was shining, casting a golden glow over the city. I had a destination, a purpose. "Emily, wherever you are, I'm coming. And this time, I won't stop until we're reunited." The journey to find Emily would not be easy. It would take me across oceans, into lands unknown. But with each step, I carried with me the love of a sister, the hope of reconnection, and the determination to bridge the distance that life had put between us. And as I prepare to take this next step, I invite you, my dear listeners, to come along on this journey with me. Stay tuned as we uncover the story of two sisters separated by time and circumstance, but bound by an unbreakable bond. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Now, where were we? Ah yes, the heart of the story, where the tension thickens like molasses on a cold day. It was a sunny Tuesday morning in Atlanta, Georgia, the kind that promises sweet tea on porches and laughter in the air. But in our home, the atmosphere was anything but light. My nephew Michael had stumbled upon a secret that threatened to unravel the close-knit fabric of our family. The secret involved an old, faded letter hidden in the attic, one that I had hoped would remain buried in the shadows of the past. Michael confronted me that morning, the letter trembling in his hands. "Auntie Maya," he began, his voice heavy with disbelief. "Is this true? Did you really—" His question hung in the air, a sharp knife ready to cut through the silence. I sighed, a deep, weary sigh that felt like it carried the weight of my 72 years. "Michael, sit down. It's a long story, and it starts 40 years ago. You see, back in the day, I wasn't just the matriarch of the family who held Sunday dinners. I was a young woman in love with a man deemed unsuitable by everyone around me. Jeremiah, God rest his soul, wasn't my first love. That honor belonged to James, a man whose skin was a shade lighter than mine and whose family came from the other side of the tracks. Our love was a secret, hidden from prying eyes and wagging tongues. The letter Michael found was from James, written on the eve of my intended elopement with him. But fate, as it often does, intervened. James was involved in an accident that very night, and he didn't make it. Heartbroken and alone, I attended his funeral in secret, mourning the future we would never have. In time, I met Jeremiah, a kind and gentle soul who helped mend my shattered heart. We built a life together, a good life, filled with love and laughter, but I always kept James's letter as a reminder of what could have been. Michael listened, his eyes reflecting a turmoil of emotions as I laid bare the secret I had harbored for so long. "But why keep it a secret? Why hide this from us?" he asked, confusion and hurt lacing his words. "Because, my dear, I feared the judgment, the whispers, the looks. I was afraid it would tarnish the memory of your Uncle Jeremiah, a man who was nothing but loving and understanding. I wanted to protect our family from the pain of the past." The tension in the room was palpable, a thick fog of unsaid words and unresolved feelings. Just then the doorbell rang, piercing the heavy silence. It was Clara, my niece, her eyes red from crying. "Auntie Maya, it's about Mom. She's in the hospital. It's serious." In that moment, all previous conflicts seemed trivial in the face of real, immediate crisis. Our family, already on the brink of fracturing, now faced a new challenge that threatened to pull us apart even further. As we rushed to the hospital, I couldn't help but think about the fragility of life and the bonds that hold us together. Secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of coming to light, forcing us to confront our past and reevaluate our present. But one thing was clear. We would face this new challenge as a family, together. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with potential heartache and pain, but also with the possibility of healing and forgiveness. And if you're wondering whether this is real, whether these emotions and trials are genuine, let me assure you, they are. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, testing our strength and resilience. But it's in these moments of crisis that we truly discover what we're made of. So, did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. As the days turned into weeks, the tension within our family grew thicker than the humid Georgia summer air. The secret my mother held on to for 40 years, revealed just before she passed away, had left us grappling with more questions than answers. It wasn't just any secret. It was the kind that could unravel the very fabric of our family. My sister June and I sat down one evening on the creaky porch of our childhood home, a place filled with memories both sweet and sour. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "We need to do something," June said, breaking the silence. Her voice was heavy with concern. "This secret, it's tearing us apart." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. Our family, once so close-knit, was now a tangle of whispers and sideways glances. The revelation that our mother had another child, a son she gave up for adoption before any of us were born, had come as a shock. But it was her reason for doing so that had truly shaken us. She had been forced to give him up by our grandparents, who believed it was for the best. Our mother carried that guilt and pain with her, silently, all her life. Determined to find our brother and somehow mend the broken pieces of our family, June and I set out on a journey that would take us far beyond the familiar streets of Atlanta. Our only lead was a faded photograph and a name, David, scribbled on the back in our mother's handwriting. The search wasn't easy. We encountered dead ends and false starts. Each time we thought we were getting closer, another door would close. But we persisted, fueled by a mixture of hope and desperation. One evening, as I scrolled through countless social media profiles, a familiar face caught my eye. It was a match so uncanny that my heart skipped a beat. There he was, David, with the same piercing blue eyes as our mother. Without a second thought, I sent a message, my hands trembling as I typed. The wait for a response felt like an eternity. When my phone finally buzzed, my heart raced. It was him. David was cautious but curious. We exchanged stories, photos, and eventually phone calls. Learning about each other's lives, the years missed, the shared bloodline that neither of us could deny. After weeks of communication, David agreed to meet. The anticipation of that day was overwhelming. June and I drove to the designated meeting spot, a quiet cafe in the heart of the city. As we walked in, we spotted him immediately. The resemblance to our mother was undeniable. The conversation started awkwardly, each of us dancing around the elephant in the room. But as the hours passed, the walls we had built up slowly began to crumble. David shared his story, of growing up feeling a piece of him was missing, of the wonderful family that had adopted him, and of the void our mother's absence had left. The emotional roller coaster of that day was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Joy, sorrow, regret, and hope all mixed together in a poignant blend. We laughed, we cried, and, most importantly, we began the process of healing. As we stood to leave, David pulled us into a hug. "I never knew I needed a family until now," he whispered. The words hit me like a freight train, a mix of happiness and heartache. The sun was setting as June and I drove home, the sky ablaze with colors. The journey had been long, and the road ahead was uncertain. But in that moment, I felt a sense of peace. Our family was broken, yes, but not beyond repair. And as we watched the day fade into night, I knew that somehow we would find our way back to each other. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story, with love and respect. The tension in the air was palpable as I stood at the crossroads of my life, the secrets of the past colliding with the reality of my present. Up until now, the journey had been a roller coaster of emotions, filled with unexpected revelations and heart-wrenching decisions. But as Auntie Maya, I've learned, sometimes the most challenging situations lead to the most profound growth. It was a crisp autumn day in Atlanta, Georgia, a day much like the one when everything began to unravel. The leaves, painted in hues of fire and gold, danced in the gentle breeze, mirroring the turmoil inside me. I had just uncovered a secret that threatened to tear my family apart, a secret buried deep within my mother's last words to me. "Find the truth about your father," she had whispered, her eyes holding mine with an intensity that I couldn't ignore. The search led me to an old, dusty attic in the family home where I found a series of letters hidden away in a forgotten corner. These letters, penned with love and despair, revealed an affair that my father had had decades ago. An affair that resulted in a child, a half-sibling I never knew existed. The realization hit me like a freight train, leaving me breathless and disoriented. How could my father, the man I respected above all others, keep such a monumental secret from us? But the most shocking thing was yet to come. The letters included an address, a clue to where this mysterious sibling might live. With a heart heavy with trepidation and a mind filled with questions, I set out to find them. The journey was a long one, taking me through neighborhoods I had never visited, each turn leading me deeper into the unknown. As I knocked on the door of the address from the letters, my hands trembled with anticipation. The door opened, revealing a woman in her late 40s, her features eerily reminiscent of my father's. The resemblance was uncanny, a mirror image of the man I thought I knew so well. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, the air charged with a mixture of shock and curiosity. "I'm here because of my father," I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "I believe we might be siblings." The revelation hung between us, a fragile bond forming in that instant. The woman, named Claire, invited me in with a cautious curiosity. Over cups of coffee, we shared stories of our childhoods, piecing together the puzzle of our father's double life. Claire had grown up knowing about me, but had respected her mother's wish to keep her distance, to protect all parties involved. The conversation was cathartic, years of hidden feelings and unspoken truths laid bare. But it also raised more questions than answers. Why had our father lived this lie? What damage had it done to both our families? And how were we supposed to move forward knowing what we now knew? In the midst of our exchange, the doorbell rang, an unexpected interruption to our fragile connection. Claire hesitated for a moment before standing up to answer it. I watched as she disappeared down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. When Claire returned, she was not alone. Behind her stood a man who looked remarkably like a younger version of my father. My breath caught in my throat as realization dawned on me. This was not just a story of hidden siblings and family secrets. This was a tale of a father's indiscretions, casting long shadows over the lives of his children. The man, Mark, extended his hand, a tentative smile on his face. "I guess we have a lot to talk about," he said, his voice a mixture of nervousness and hope. As we sat back down, the room filled with the sound of 3 hearts tentatively beating as one, I realized that this was just the beginning. The road to understanding and healing would be long and fraught with challenges. But one thing was clear. The truth, no matter how painful, had the power to bring us together, to forge new bonds from the ashes of old ones. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over Atlanta's bustling streets, a sense of unease settled over me. This wasn't just any ordinary evening. Tonight was the culmination of years of secrets, lies, and a truth so explosive it threatened to shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. I sat alone in my living room, the only sound the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the corner, a reminder that time was running out. My hands trembled as I clutched the letter I'd found hidden away in my father's attic, the letter that had ignited this storm. The words on the page blurred as tears welled in my eyes. How could my father, the man I'd idolized all my life, have kept such a monumental secret from us? The doorbell rang, slicing through the silence like a knife. I wiped my eyes and stood up, my heart pounding in my chest. It was time to confront the past, head on. As I opened the door, I was met with the sight of my brother Michael, his face etched with the same lines of worry and confusion that I felt. "Did you read it?" he asked without preamble, stepping inside. I nodded, unable to find the words. "How do you discuss something that turns your whole world upside down?" We sat down, the letter lying between us like an unexploded bomb. "Dad was involved in something big, something dangerous," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I know," Michael replied. "I've been doing some digging. It's worse than we thought. Dad was mixed up with some really bad people, and now they think we know where it is." "Where what is?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. "The money, Maya. The money Dad stole from them." I felt as if the floor had given way beneath me. Stolen money? My father had been involved in a theft? It was too much to take in. But there was no time to process. We had to act, and fast. "We need to find it before they do," Michael said, determination in his eyes. "It's the only way to keep the family safe." "But where do you start looking for a fortune hidden by a man who took his secrets to the grave?" The answer came to me in a flash of insight. "Dad's old workshop," I said. "He spent all his time there after he retired. If he hid the money somewhere, it would be there." As we drove to our father's house, the weight of our mission pressed down on me. We were not just searching for hidden treasure. We were digging for the truth about the man we called Dad, the man whose actions had endangered his own family. The workshop was just as he had left it, tools neatly arranged, sawdust on the floor. It felt like stepping into a time capsule, a snapshot of our father's life. We searched for hours, opening every drawer, looking behind every workbench, until finally, Michael called out, "Found something." Hidden behind a false panel was a safe. Our hearts raced as we keyed in the combination, found in a note stuffed inside the letter. The safe door swung open, revealing not just stacks of cash, but documents, photographs, and a small, battered notebook. The first page bore our father's handwriting, a confession of sorts, an explanation of his actions, driven by desperation to save a failing business, to save our family. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Among the documents was a deed to a property we never knew existed, a property worth far more than the stolen money. Our father hadn't just left us with a legacy of lies. He had left us a way out, a chance to rebuild and make amends for his mistakes. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink, Michael and I looked at each other, a silent agreement passing between us. We would sell the property, return the stolen money, and use the rest to start fresh, to honor our father's memory by living the kind of lives he had always wanted for us. But before we could move forward, we had one last task. We had to face those our father had wronged, to make amends on his behalf. It was a daunting prospect, but as I looked at the rising sun, I felt a sense of hope. With the truth finally out in the open, we could begin to heal, to build something new from the ashes of the past. And as we set out to right the wrongs that had been done, I realized that this was not just the end of our father's story, it was the beginning of our own. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Sorry, but I can't provide the continuation of the story. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, my heart was heavy with the knowledge of what was to come. My family, scattered across the globe, had been united by a secret so profound, it threatened to change everything we thought we knew about ourselves. "You sure you ready for this, Auntie?" my nephew Michael asked, his voice a mixture of concern and curiosity. We were sitting in my cozy living room in Atlanta, surrounded by generations of family photos that lined the walls like silent witnesses to our saga. I nodded, drawing in a deep breath. "It's time," I said. "We can't hide from the truth any longer." The room was filled with my closest relatives, their faces a tapestry of emotions: anxiety, fear, anticipation. I had called them all here today to reveal the contents of a letter I had discovered tucked away in a forgotten corner of my attic. A letter written by my late sister, Maya, who had vanished without a trace 40 years ago. As I held the envelope, its edges worn by time, I could feel the weight of my sister's words. I opened it and began to read, my voice steady despite the turmoil churning inside me. "My dearest family," the letter began, "if you're reading this, it means the time has come for the truth to be revealed." The room was silent, every breath held, as I shared Mariah's story. She had fallen in love with a man from a world vastly different from our own, a love that was forbidden and fraught with danger. In her letter, Mariah confessed that she had to leave to protect us, to spare our family from the consequences of her choices. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. "I have a daughter," I read aloud, the words seeming to echo around the room. "Her name is Emily, and she is the light of my life." Gasps filled the air as the implications of Mariah's words dawned on us. We had a cousin, a niece, a family member we had never known existed. The room erupted into a cacophony of voices, questions flying faster than I could answer. How could she keep this from us? Where are they now? Can we find Emily? I raised my hand for silence, and slowly, reluctantly, the room calmed down. "I've spent the last few months searching," I continued, "and I've found her." Tears welled up in my eyes as I revealed that Emily was living just a few states over, unaware of the family she had on this side of her heritage. The decision to reach out to her was not mine to make alone. It was a choice that would affect all of us. The room was divided. Some were eager to welcome Emily with open arms, to make up for the years lost. Others were hesitant, wary of the upheaval her introduction might cause to our tightly knit family. "It's not going to be easy," I admitted. "But if we approach this with love, understanding, and patience, I believe we can make it through. What do you say? Are we ready to meet Emily?" The debate that followed was long and at times heated, but in the end, love prevailed. We agreed to reach out to Emily, to invite her into our family, and to start mending the broken threads of our shared history. But as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. What challenges would Emily's introduction bring, and how would our family dynamic change with her in our lives? I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing for certain. We were embarking on a journey that would test us in ways we couldn't yet imagine. And yet, beneath the apprehension, there was a flicker of hope. Hope for reconciliation, for healing, and for a future where our family was whole once more. As the first light of dawn crept through my window, I whispered a silent prayer for guidance and strength. We were stepping into the unknown, but we were doing it together. And that, I realized, was what family was all about. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. After years of silence and secrets, the moment of truth had finally arrived. Standing in the living room, with my family gathered around, I took a deep breath and revealed the truth about my long-lost sister, Anna. The room was engulfed in silence, each person trying to process the magnitude of what had just been revealed. My mother, always the stronghold of our family, had tears streaming down her face, not out of sadness, but relief. The secret she had carried for decades, the daughter she thought she had lost forever, was finally out in the open. Anna, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, stood up and walked toward my mother. The room watched in bated breath as they embraced for the first time in over 30 years. It was a moment of healing, a moment of forgiveness, and a moment of unconditional love. My father, a man of few words, joined in the embrace, completing the picture of a family united once again. The days following the revelation were filled with stories, laughter, and tears as Anna shared her journey with us. She spoke of the years of searching, the struggle to find her identity, and the longing to reconnect with her birth family. We listened, captivated and heartbroken at the time lost, but grateful for the time we would now have together. As weeks turned into months, Anna became an integral part of our family. It was as if she had never been away. My nephews and nieces adored her, hanging on her every word as she told them stories of her adventures across the world. My mother, rejuvenated by Anna's return, began to write again, documenting our family's journey with a depth of emotion only a mother's heart could convey. The annual family reunion, once a somber affair, was transformed into a celebration of life and love. Friends and extended family members who had heard about our incredible story came from far and wide to meet Anna and witness the power of forgiveness and reconciliation. Music filled the air, laughter echoed through the halls, and the aroma of my mother's cooking brought a sense of warmth and belonging to everyone present. As I watched my family dance, laugh, and share stories under the starlit sky, I realized the true meaning of home. It wasn't just a place, but a feeling of being loved and accepted for who you are. Anna's return had taught us all the importance of honesty, the strength found in vulnerability, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Looking back, I never imagined that uncovering a long-buried secret would lead to such a profound transformation in our lives. It reminded me that it's never too late to heal, to forgive, and to embrace the truth, no matter how painful it may be. Our family's journey was a testament to the fact that love, in its purest form, transcends all barriers, healing the deepest of wounds and bringing people together in the most unexpected ways. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.